Hey, what's up, guys? How you guys doing? This is the start of live stream episode 3, where we're going to work on creating a verification token when a user registers, and we're also going to be able to reset a password, pretty much give them the ability to do that as well. So we're going to wait for a few people to jump in here, and then we'll get started. Okay, guys, so we're just going to get started working on creating a verification token for our register when a user registers onto the form. So let's quickly go over what we did in episode 2, and then we'll work on episode 3. So in episode 2, we created, let's open up the development server. And what we did in episode 2 was we created the register form and the login form with all of the functionality as well. So that is in the path/auth/register. And everything is connected to our database in MongoDB. And we're using the ORM of Prisma. So we have register page, and then we have the login page as well. The sign in with Google is working. We can sign with our Google account, or we could just use the credentials provider and register as well. So the thing I want to work on now is when a user registers, I want to send a verification email to that user so that we could actually make sure they're using a verified email. So to do that, the first step we have to do, which I'm going to write notes on this in my Notion, which I already have Livestream 3 open, we are going to create a model in the Prisma.schema for the verification token. So we're going to create a verification token model, which we already did all the way back in episode 1, which I just copied over from one of my previous projects. And what we did was in the schema.prism, we have a model called verification token, and we have an ID, email, we have a token, we have the expires, and then we have this decorator pretty much saying that we need a unique email and a token, and they both need to be unique and no email or token, and any other model that anybody receives can be like it. So this is what this verification token is. So if you haven't and you're following along, I recommend adding a model in your Prism.schema. Then after you add any model in your Prism schema, you must add the command npx prism generate, and then press enter, and then you have to run npx prism db push. So anytime you make a change to your Prism file, so your schema.prism, you must run those two commands to actually update your database and your backend. Okay, so now that we technically have our verification token ready to go, we need to add it in the register action. So the server action that we have for the register form, we are going to still do all of our checks. So we're checking to see if the passwords match. Then we are hashing the passwords. Then we are seeing if there's a user in the database. And then if there is no user in the database, then we are just creating a user with the email, name, and the password. So after we create the email, name, and password, what we want to do is we want to then be able to send a verification token. So I'm just going to write a comment. Or no, we're going to have to generate one first. So we're going to have to generate a verification token. And then we're going to have to send one. So we need to generate it before we send it. And like I said, that is going to be done right after we actually create the user. So you see we're creating the user right here. Let me just zoom in so you guys can maybe see better. This should be better, I think. So like I said, we're going to create the model, and then we're going to generate the verification token. We're going to create a function, and then we're going to implement it to the register form. So like I said, inside of the register, we could store this in a variable. So we could say const verification token, and this is going to equal generate verification token, just like that. And we have to create this function. And to create these functions, we could do this in a different folder so we could keep everything pretty much organized. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a folder, or actually we are going to just have it inside the data. We're going to create a new file. We could call this verification dash token, and this is going to be .tsx. And this is where we are going to actually get our verification token. So we could have this file up here for now, but the file I want to create is going to be inside of our lib folder. So we're going to create something in our lib. We're just going to call it token. So token.ts, just like that. And then what we're going to create in here is we're going to create a generate verification token function. So we're going to say export const generate verification token. This is going to have to be asynchronous, and the reason why is because we have to make some calls to our database. So it is going to be asynchronous. And then it looks like that. So we have the function here, and we're exporting it. So let's import it inside of our register action. And this is from @lib/token. So this is ready to go. And what we want to pass in here, because we want to make sure we match up the token to the email, we want to pass in the email, just like that. And we're getting the email from the input that they actually used up here. So this is technically the validated data, and we destructured all of that data here. So now we're just going to use that email down here, and we're getting an error because it's expecting 0 arguments, but got 1. So we need to accept that argument or parameter inside of our generate verification token. So this is going to be email, and it is going to be of type string. And I don't need the curly braces. So yep, it's going to look exactly like that. So we're accepting the email, and now we need to create the logic function to actually generate a verification token. So to do this, we can create a variable called token, and then we need to create a random token for every user. And what we can do is we can use the package UUID. This is pretty much just generating a verification, just a random token, random numbers, which we're going to use as our verification. I think this package is automatically downloaded. I'm not 100%. Let me see. Version 4 as UUID. So it's not. So we need to install this package. I'm not 100%. Let me see if we do or not. Yes, we need to install the package. So npm install UUID. And it actually might have some types on it as well. Let's see. Yeah, it does. So we're going to have to install the types as a dev dependency as well. So just like this. And now we have the types, and this error should go away. And we are now creating a random token, and I want to show you guys how the token is going to look. So what we can do is just console log the token. Let's go to our terminal that's actually running, and this function is going to fire off inside of the register server action when we actually create the user. So let's create a user and then see what the terminal says. So let's open up our terminal, go to our development server, and let's create a random user. So 3 whatever, Brett. We're going to click register, and this is going to create the user. User created successfully, and we are going to look in our terminal, see if we have a random number in there. And we do. So we console log the token, which is right here, and it gave us this random value right here that we're going to use as our token. So this is, if they have this in their email, we're going to send this to their email, and they're going to be able to verify that they received this token by just clicking the link, and then we're going to use the search params to get the token from the URL, check it against the database, make sure they match up, and if they do, we change the field inside of the user model of email verified. We actually give it a date, time, and that means the email is verified and is true, and we could log in because now we have a verified email. Okay, so we can remove this console log because the token's working. Next, we could create an expires because we don't want this token to just always be available and used. They need to actually use the token within, like, say 5 minutes, a minute, an hour, whatever we want to give it, we can give it. So we're going to give it a date. We're going to do the get time, and it's giving us a Copilot is giving us a recommendation of 24 hours. But if you actually remove this and you put like 5, or you could put like 15 minutes, I think it's going to change this right here. If you press tab, it'll be a plus, and then it'll give you like pretty much recommendation of which we should type. Let's see. It's not. So let's try to change some things. So we got 1,000 times 60 times 60 times 24. So if we do an hour, I think that's just going to be an hour. Yeah. Then we could change this to maybe 5. Let's see what it's telling us. That's 5 minutes. Okay. So we're making sure that the token expires after 5 minutes. So that's what we're going to do. So after, they only have about 5 minutes to use the verification token. And if they don't, they're going to have to request a new one. Let's actually give it 15 minutes. 15 minutes gives them a little more time to actually do it, just in case. Okay, next we want to pretty much get the verification token. So we're going to create a variable called existing token. And then we're going to create another function called get verification token, and then by email. And then we're going to pass in the email. So like I said, we're passing the email through the props here, and then we're going to use it here as well. So now we need to actually write a function in that file I created earlier, which was in the data folder, verification token. And we are going to get the verification token from our database. So we're going to import the database from lib/prism, and then we're going to export the const, and we're going to generate verification token. This is going to be asynchronous since we are using our database. It's accepting the email. We're going to get it's not generate. My fault. It's get. We have to get the verification. And this, we're getting it by email. Asynchronous will be an arrow function. And then this is going to be a string that we're accepting. And what we're going to do, we can run a try catch block. And inside of the try, we are going to set a variable called verification token. And we're going to await our database. We're going to call our database. We are going to look inside of the model verification token, and we're going to use the find first. And we're going to find where there is an email. So all we're doing is looking inside of this model called verification token, and we are going to pretty much find the verification token and set it inside of this variable here. And we have to return it now too. And if you guys have any questions, just leave them in the chat, or if you guys want to discuss anything else as well, you can leave it in the chat as well. Return null. We could just do that for the catch. Okay. So if you wanted this to be explained too, we could just do, you could hover over the verification token and you could see the variables that are inside of this. You could see the props or the parameters that are inside of this variable. So the verification token variable has an ID, an email, a token, and it expires. And then it's of type verification token or null because of the try catch. Okay, so that is us getting the verification token. And now let's import that function here. So we're trying to get the existing token by calling this function and then passing in the email. Next, we're going to say if there is an existing token. So if there is a token associated with this specific email, we are going to await the database.verification token, and we are going to delete that token because just in case somebody might, like I said, they might run out of the 15-minute time limit and they're going to request it again. So if they already have a token, an existing token, we're going to delete the one they have. So to do that, we need to find where, and we could do ID equals the existing token.id, just like that. Okay, so under this if statement, next we are going to create the new verification token. So we're just going to say verification token. And this is going to await a database call. So database.verification token, and then we're going to create the new one, create. And these are all Prism methods, like the .create, .find first, .delete. This is all in Prism, and this is us just using the Prism client. So we're going to create a new token, and we are going to pass in the email, the token we created up here, so token, and we are going to pass in the expires as well. And type number is not assignable to type string or date. So technically our Prism schema, if we look at it, expires, this is equaling a new date, .get time. So type number is not assignable to type string or date. So what we can do here is we could either turn this into a string or a date, which I feel like it is a date, but we could do a quick fix to see what it is. So we're going to do a fix using Copilot and see the recommendation they give us. So what they're saying is expires and then new date, and then they're just wrapping the expires, which works. That works. It's just creating a new date, converts expires to a date object. Okay. So we're taking this expires variable and then we're passing it inside of a new date object, converting it to a date object. Okay. So that fixes that type error. The next thing we need to do is after creating this new verification token, we just need to return it. Return verification token, just like that. Okay, so this is generating the token, and right here, this is getting the token. So it's checking to see if there is a token associated with this email. And then in this code over here, the register, we are calling generate verification token, which is here. So we generate it. We check to see if there's a verification token already associated with email, and if there's not, we just create a new verification token with a email token and expires and return it here. So now we generated it. The next thing we need to do, if we look inside of my Notion, we generate it and then we implement it into the register form, which is that one line of code. Next thing we need to do is we need to now send the verification via email, and then we need the user to click on it and then be able to pretty much right off the bat, it verifies that the token was associated with their email and it lets them sign in. So the next step we need to do is we need to use resend, and we also need to create a send verification email function. Okay, so to do that, we can create a, inside of the lib folder, we could create a mail.ts. And inside of this is where we're going to create functions that we're going to send mail, like emails with. So one of the packages we need to download is resend. So if we go to their website, resend is what we're going to use to send emails. So it's email for developers. It just sends emails via HTTP request or SMTP request. And right now I am a pro member, so I'm paying for it, but the free membership does give you access to use one domain, or you can send emails via their email that they provide. So I'm going to show you exactly what that looks like. So we're going to go to the docs. We'll do a Next.js quick start. And as you can see, the first thing we need to do is we need to install the package resend. So we're going to copy that, come back to our code, open our terminal, and let's install that package. So that package is installing. Next thing we need to do is you can create an email template, which this you don't have to. We could do a very basic one to start, and then later on we'll actually create a more user-friendly looking email that's good to look at. So next thing is we need to actually send the email using React. So this is the old way of doing it because you have the Pages API, but if you're using the Pages router. But if you're using the app router, you could do it inside the app API send route TS if you're using the app router. Or you can actually do it in a server action, which we can do as well. So the next thing we want to do inside is inside of this server, pretty much the server component here. What we're going to do is we're going to import resend. And this is going to come from resend. Just like that. And then we need to declare resend and get an API key. So we're going to say const resend equals new resend. And then this takes in the API key, which we need to get and create. So we're going to store this inside of our environment variable. We're going to call this resend underscore API underscore key. Let's copy this variable, go inside of our .env and paste it. And don't worry, I'm going to change all of these variables when I'm actually making the project live, because don't show anybody these keys. After we do that, let's go back to the resend website and let's get the API key. So to do that, we can go to API keys here. We're on resend.com/API keys. And what we can do is create a new API key. I'm going to name this auth, or we could do a chat GPT live stream SaaS. And full access, yes. We could do all domains, and then we're just click add. And it says you can only see this key once, store safely. So we're just going to copy it. And then paste it in our env variable of resend underscore API underscore key. And we could close this file, but you won't be able to see it again, which is fine. we're going to go next and we're going to actually send the verification email. So that's what we're going to create. So if we go back to our code inside of the mail.ts file, what we want to do is we want to create a function called send verification email. This is going to be asynchronous. And what we are going to pass is an email, which is a string, and the token, which is a string. So we are passing the token to the email and the email because we need to know what email we're sending it to. So what we could do is we could create a confirmation link. So we're going to say confirmation link. And then let's use the template literal because we're going to have to store some variables in this. So what we're going to do is we are going to, I'm going to create a variable called domain. And this is going to equal for now HTTP localhost 3000. So we are going to send the confirmation link. So this is the link they click on. This is going to be localhost 3000 /auth/new verification. So this is a route that we haven't created yet. And let's send some parameters onto the end of this. So let's send the token parameter, and that's just going to equal the token, just like that. So we're going to store it in the token variable inside of the URL. So now we have a confirmation link, and we're going to be able to send this via email. And to do that, we can run the await resend.send. This takes an object, and it says property send does not. Oh, it's resend.emails. It's resend.emails.send. And then what we can do is we can look at the docs again, and we can see what they actually are telling us to do. So for Next.js, so as you can see here, we are storing it in a data variable, and they're running the command resend.emails.send. They have a from, a to, a subject, and React, which is the email. And for us, we could just actually replace this with HTML instead. Or you could create an email template folder like this, and you could actually use JSX and style your email, which we will do in a second. But for now, we're just going to make sure everything's working and do it the simple way. And you can use API routes like they are here, or you could do it the way we're doing it as well. So the first one we want is going to be from, and this is very important. This won't work unless you have a pro account. So if you most likely have a free account that you signed up for, you're going to have to send the email to test it from onboarding at resend. I think it's .dev. Let me see what they use. So whatever they use, that's the only thing you can send it from. So it's right here. It's going to be from this email here. You must send it from this email, or it's not going to work at all if you're on a free account. If you're not on a free account, you can actually verify a domain and then send it from your domain email. But for now, we're going to use this for test purposes. 2 is going to be what email we're going to send it to. So it's going to be email, which we're getting from the parameters and the props. Next is going to be the subject. This is the subject line of the email we're sending. We're going to say, please verify your email address. And then we are going to have the HTML, and we are going to use the template literals. And then we could have a p tag, and inside this p tag, we're going to say click, and then we have an a tag, the confirmation link, which we created here, to verify your email address. Perfect. Okay, so that should actually send an email, and that is all the code you need to send an email, but it's not going to send yet because we haven't used it in the register form. So the register server action we need to go into, and after we generate the verification token, we need to await send verification email, and this is from @lib/mail. And then what we are going to pass in here is we are going to pass in the email, which is what they typed on the input. And then we're going to pass in the verification token .token. And the reason why this is saying property token does not exist on promise, did you forget await? So we did forget to use an await right here, which is great. TypeScript pretty much caught that error. And so now is good to go because the verification token, it receives the ID, the email, the token, and it expires. So we generate the token, and then we're going to pass it into here to send it via email. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to test all this out to see if we actually get something sent to our email. And make sure you test this out with the email that you actually registered with resend. So if you signed in with the Google provider, use that email. So whatever email you used to resend, test it out with that email. So I'm going to go to my MongoDB and just delete all of my entries to make sure the email that I used to sign up for resend isn't already in the database. Okay, so we're going to browse the collection and we are just going to delete all of the users in our database for now. So the account is the Gmail provider. So these are all pretty much accounts that signed up via Gmail. Next, we're going to go into the user, and this is a combination of the Google provider and also the credentials provider. I'm actually in the wrong I'm in the wrong database, so make sure you're actually in the right database. That would help when you start deleting stuff. So we are now in the right database, and now we can remove what we need to. So I'm going to delete all of the users inside of our user collection. There's got to be a way to select them all. Let's see. We'll have to play around with it, but for the live streams, I really want to teach you guys stuff as well. So that's why I'm going over stuff I kind of already know. But I also do want to go over stuff that I don't know and kind of show you guys how I learn on screen as well. Okay, so we deleted all the users from our database. So now let's test it out to see if we're actually sending an email to ourselves when we actually sign up for an account. So I'm going to refresh the page. I am going to see if I get an email sent to my account. We're going to click register. It says user created successfully, which we're going to change that message to email verification sent or something like that. So we're going to check my email right now. And as you can see, we do have an email that says, please verify your email address. And it says, please click here to verify. If we click here, it should be localhost 3000/auth. And then as you can see, the token is inside of the URL up here. So now we could just use the use search params and extract that value and be able to pretty much make sure that we update the user model saying that the email was verified. So it looks like the email's working. Everything's working good. If we go back to our database, it's going to show that a user was created with the password, name, and email, and ID. And then we also have a verification token as well that was created. So you can see here the token, which this token is going to match up to this token. So 99D1. And if we look here, 99D1. So it's the same token that we're putting inside of the URL. Perfect. So everything is working how it should. Let me fix my camera real quick. It looks a little crooked. Okay. And the next thing we need to do is after we send the verification token to them in their email, they're going to click it. So we need to create a new route. So that route is going to be inside of the app auth. And then inside of this, we're going to create a new folder called new verification. And the reason why is because this is what the confirmation link is. So if you go to the mail, we created a route, which is localhost 3000 /auth / new verification. And then we just appended the token on the end with the value. So in here, we're going to create a page.tsx. And what we want to do is when they land on this new verification page, right off the bat, we want to run a side effect function that checks the token from the URL parameter, and then it checks against the database and updates the verified email for that specific user. So what we're going to do is we're going to run RAFCE. This is going to be the new verification page. We can remove this import at the top. We want to keep this a server page. So what we want to do is we want to create a function, a component called new verification form. So we are going to go inside of our components, our auth. We're going to create a new file, and we're going to call this new verification. And we can name this, oh, I didn't mean to click out of that. We can name this new verification form.tsx, just like that. And inside of this new verification form.tsx, we are going to mark this as a use client. And because we're going to use a use effect, which allows us to run the function right when the page loads. So we are going to import the use effect at the top from React. Another thing we want to use is we want to use the card wrapper. And that is the component we created, which is reusable. And this is going to be coming from where is it coming from? The card wrapper is coming from @/components /auth /card wrapper. And card wrapper is declared, but its value is never read. Okay. Another thing we want to do is we want to import the use search params hook, and this is coming from next / navigation. And this allows us to read the search params. Another thing we want to do is we need a server action. So we are going to say import new verification. And this, we are going to create a server action. So inside here, the actions folder, we're going to create a new file, and we're going to call this new verification.ts. And now we can create a server action, which is the logic depending on if the verification token is successful or not. So let's import this new verification form, which we need to create the function. Let's do that. And we're going to call this new verification form. We can remove this import. Let's remove this as well for now. Let's import the new verification form into our page. So we got it like that. And the new verification form component, that's the next thing we're going to work on right here. And inside of the new verification component, instead of a div, we're going to use the card wrapper. And that is a reusable component we actually created. Let me see if I could import card wrapper from card wrapper like that. And the card wrapper accepts props, it's missing the following properties of children, header label, backbone label, title, and backbone href. So we need to add those in. So the first one is going to be header label. And we could just say confirming your email address. Next is going to be the title. This should be the title. And these cards are all going to look the same because the card wrapper is the reusable component. So we're going to say confirming your verification now. What we can do the back button href, which we can do /auth/login. We want to send them to the login page because after they confirm the email, then we're going to give them the ability to actually log in. And then we're going to have the back button label, which we're going to say back to login, just like that. And the only other thing we're missing is children, and property children's missing is because the children are inside of this card wrapper. So we're going to have a div, and we'll keep that for now as is. Next thing I want to do is I want to create the use effect. So this use effect is going to run a side effect function right when the page loads. So the array dependency is going to be empty, so there's going to be nothing right on the load, or actually when the token changes. And what we can do is the use effect. Not when the token changes. Let me reiterate what I just said. So we are going to let's first get the token. Let's work in order. So let's get the token equals. First, we need to initialize the search params, the use search params. So search params equals use search params const token equals search params.get, and we labeled the token variable token. So that's what we should get. And then we could console log the token and make sure we're getting it. Next is I want to create a function called onSubmit. And this is just going to submit it, and this is going to run right when the page is actually loaded. So that means the page only loaded is when they actually click the verification link inside of their email. So we're going to use the use callback hook as well. And this is going to be an arrow function. And what we're going to do here is if success or error return. Actually, we're not going to do that yet. So we're going to have this callback function, and this callback function is going to be called here on the onSubmit. And this function is going to run when the onSubmit. And then we're going to have two other variables, which we're going to create using useState. So useState. And I want to create a success variable and a error. So success and an error. So it's going to be either string or null. And then the initial value can be null like that. Okay, so the onSubmit, it's going to be if the success or the error we're just returning. And then for the use callback function, we're passing in the token like that as the array dependency. So we are just returning this if it's a success or error. And we are also saying if there is no token, we are going to set the error to invalid token and just return. Stop the function there. And the next thing we want to do is we want to create a new verification. Just like that is going to be not new verification form. This is going to be a server action. So new verification. Like that. And then we're going to pass in the token. So we're going to verify this new verification, which we named here as a server action. So what we have to do for the server action is write a use server. We're going to import the database from our Prism client file. We're also going to import the get user by email, which is a function we created inside of our data folder. This just retrieves the user by email. And we are also going to import the get verification token. Get the verification token by token, because we have to pass the token. And this is going to come from the data folder, which is down here in verification. And then we have to create another function called export const get verification token by token. It accepts the param of token. And all we do is run a try catch, store it in a variable called verification token, and then find the verification token depending on the token, and then return it. And let's go back to our server action. And this is going to be coming from @data / verification token, just like that. So let's do export const new verification token. This is going to be an asynchronous function that accepts the token as a string. And inside of the block of code, if you want to know if you actually are getting the token, you could just console log it. But we are passing in the token here. We have to import this new server action. So it's coming from the actions folder. We're passing in the token into this action here. We're accepting the token here. And then what we could do is we could do const existing token equals await get verification token by token and pass in the token. So we can't do it by email because we can't pass in the email. We have to pass in the token. So if there's not an existing token, return invalid token. And we are going to say const, we're going to see if it expired as well. So we're creating a variable called has expired, and we're going to say the new date, and we're going to pass in the existing token dot expires, and we're going to make sure it is less than the date right now. So if it's less than the date right now of when it expires, that means it hasn't expired. So if this is true, so we're saying if has expired is true, then the token has expired, and we return that error message. Next, we are going to get the existing user. And this is going to be the get user by email. And we are passing in the existing token dot email. So when we get the verification token by email, verification token by token, we are getting the pretty much the existing token model, and we're getting the ID, the email, the token expires, and we're able to now use the existing token variable dot email to get the user by email. Then what we're going to do here is if there's no existing user, just put user not found. And that step right there is pretty much just taking the token and then seeing if the existing token model matches with an email that's in the user model. So it's just matching a bunch of things up. When we actually run the code, I'll try to explain it better. But if you guys do have any questions, leave them in the live stream and I'll answer them right away. But other than that, let's await the database dot user dot update. And what we're going to do right here, let me see if I get this to stay. We are going to update the user where the ID equals the existing user.id. And then what we're going to do here is we're going to update the data, and we're going to update the email verified field to the new date, or you could do true as well. So if it's a Boolean, but if you didn't do it as a Boolean, then it should be new date. And then email is going to be the existing token.email. So we're getting an error right here. Property ID does not exist on type promise or null. So what we can do here is we can actually change this from null to undefined. We're getting the existing user from this get user by email. Let's see, where did we work on that piece of the code? What we can do, I guess, we could, for now, do a quick fix using Copilot and see what it recommends. I think we didn't run the await command, which we didn't. Yeah. Okay. So we didn't await the get user by email, and that's why the .id wasn't actually being rendered on our page. So what we could do is then after that, we could await the database .verification token, and then we're going to delete it. So we're going to delete that verification token from that specific model, and that's where the ID equals the existing .id. And then we need to return a success saying email verified. And now we need to send this server action, so all these success or errors, to the front end so the client could see. So what we're going to do is go to the new verification form, and here is our server action right here. And we need to run the .then command. So if it's successful, we're going to map through the data essentially. We're going to call everything data, and then we're going to say if data.error, then we're going to set the error to data.error, else we could set the success to data.success, and it says argument of type string or undefined is not assignable to we could do a quick fix as well. I usually do quick fixes when it comes to types. I'm just going to discard that for now. I'm going to do it like this. Let me try this. So we're going to say if data.success, then we're going to set the success to data.success. Then we can say else. We're just going to set the error to data.error, and now we're getting error for this. Argument type string or undefined is not assignable. Or we could just say if data.error, set error to data.error, and then close this. And that works better actually, because now we're not getting an error. So we could do a then, and then at the end of the then, we could do a .catch to see if we're getting any errors at all. So what we can do is we could run an arrow function like this. And then we can set the error to an error occurred, which works pretty good too. Okay, so success to data.success, and all of the data.success messages would just be this one, and all of the data.errors could be user not found, token expired, or invalid token. And then we are running the use effect hook, which is running a side action function. So right when the page loads, so on submit success or error, that's when it will run. And I do actually, let me just copy this. I'm going to click explain this for Copilot because I kind of want to be able to explain stuff better in more technical terms, just for myself and also for you guys as well. Okay, so the TypeScript and React code snippet right here defines a callback function named onSubmit using the use callback hook from React. This function is likely used as a handler for a form submission event, which it's not. The use callback hook returns a memoized version of the callback function that only changes if one of the dependencies has changed. In this case, the dependency is token. This means that the onSubmit function will only be redefined if token changes. Inside the onSubmit function, there are several conditional checks and operations. If success or error return, this checks if either success or error is truthy. If either is truthy, the function returns immediately and the rest of the code is not executed. Success and error are likely state variables that indicate whether a previous operation was successful or encountered an error. So that is okay. So if the token's changing, that's just stopping it. If it was successful or error, it's just stopping this function right off the bat. That's what that's doing. And then the if no token set error to invalid token. This checks if the token is falsy. If it is, the function calls the set error with the argument invalid token and then returns. Set error is likely a state setter function from the use state hook used to send error message. Token is likely a state variable or prop that holds a token needed for the verification operation. And then the new verification token.then, this is a call to an asynchronous function new verification token, passing the token as an argument. Then the function likely sends a request to a server to perform some kind of verification operation. If the promise returned by the new verification resolves, the .then callback is executed with the resolved value as its argument data. Inside this callback, there are two conditional checks. If data.success is truthy, then we set this success. Then we call the function set success with the data.success. The set success is likely a state setter function from the use state hook used to indicate a successful operation. So after we set success and set error, we actually need to display these. So to do that, we need to come in the div, and I'm going to take some styles from my other code. So we're going to say flex items center with full justify center. That's actually just making the card centered. That's what it's doing. It's making all the content in the card centered. And then what we could do is if error, so we could do form success, which was a component we created. It's reusable. We could pass in the message, which is what it accepts, and it'll be the success. Isn't it the form success accepts the message? Yep. Type string or null is not assignable to type string or undefined. Oh, okay, so that's where we have to make this undefined. Make this undefined. And just make these initial states undefined as well. Makes sense. Okay. Then we could also display the form error if the message equals error, just like that. And then we need to make, I don't want these to always show. So if there's no success, then we need to do the ampersand and then pass this in. And then we need to do above here, if there's no success and no error, then we just say verifying. We're going to do text muted. Is it foreground or foreground muted? We could go in the global CSS and see what they called it. Where's the text muted foreground? Okay. So if there's no error, we should display the success. Okay, everything looks pretty good. Let's go back to what I was saying. So if the promise returned by the new verification rejects, the .catch callback is executed. Inside this callback, the function calls the set error with and the argument an error occurred. This sets a generic error message if an error is thrown during the execution of the new verification. Overall, this onSubmit function performs a verification operation when a form is submitted, handles the server response, and updates the component state accordingly. Okay, so I think everything is good, and let's test everything out now for the verification. I'm gonna delete, go in the user, delete. Let's refresh the page. Everything looks good, so let's try it out now. So I'm going to send to my email, Brett, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm going to register. Instead of saying user created successfully, let me change that right now. Let me go to the register form. And then it's the register server action, and the success message should be email verification was sent. Let me just make sure. Let me delete that user again. And let's try again. Refresh. Register. Email verification was sent. Cool. Let's check. We just got an email 0 minutes ago. So we click here to verify. It gets taken to a page confirming email. And then it popped up and went away. Let me see if it verified me. Let me go refresh this page. It does verify me at this time, which is the time now. So it did work. Let me delete this. The verification token did get deleted. We ran that function. our display isn't staying like it should. So it should just like it should be a success message, and it should be staying on the screen, not just popping up and leaving. So the new verification form success. Let me install a loader too. Let me get this. Let me do an npm install React spinners. That's a nice little package that we could actually use. Control C. And what I want to do is I'm going to copy this div from over here and see how this works. So we have a div right here wrapping this. If it's no success or no error, then it's just going to show the beat loader, and then form success message equals success. So this form success, I think, is only going to show when it's successful. Okay, so let's try that again. Yeah, so it's showing now, which is weird. Okay, but I deleted that user, so let's try again. DA. Register. Email verification sent. Click here to verify. Confirming your verification now. Header label, header. Is that the title or the H1 is the title, yeah. It's a little too big for me. Let me that's good. Email verified successfully. Back to login, and then now we go to login. Okay, so everything's working with the email verification. The only thing now we need to do is we need to actually add asynchronous callbacks inside of our auth.js, because we want to make sure that we can't log in if the email is not verified. So we need to because right now, if they just don't verify it, they could technically still log in. So we need to make sure we put a stop to that. So to do that, we need to go to our auth.js. Let's close all of these files. Inside of our auth.js, we need to create an asynchronous callback. And there's a bunch of them we could create. So we could create this pages. We'll create underneath the pages. They're going to be called callbacks. And the callback we need to use we're going to do the async. It'll be the sign in. And what we're going to get is the user and account. We need a comma after this so we don't get this error. Okay, so the sign in is we need to go to our Prism schema real quick, and we need to look at the account. Does it verify the email? Off the back, it just verifies it. Even if it doesn't, there's no way to verify the email in the Gmail provider. So what we need to do is we need to console log like this, sign in user and account, and then we're getting an error because we need to return true, like that. And when we sign in, I want to see exactly what it's giving us in the terminal. So let's log in. That's so weird, that error, but then it logs us in. We got to figure out what that is, but for now, let's go. And for us, we have the sign in right here, which we console log. So we have the user, which is the ID, the name, the email verified, image, and password. And then we have the provider. Cool. So what we can do is we can actually do what can we do? So if the account dot provider if this doesn't equal the credentials, so that means if it's the Google provider, that's the only thing we have, we could just return true, which will log us in. So if you return true, it automatically logs you in. If you return false, it won't let you log in. I'm going to put allow Google provider to sign in without verifying email, because they don't have to verify it. It's a Gmail account. It's already verified, so we're good. We don't need to verify those. Next, we need to find the existing user. And what we can do is we can await the get user by ID or email. It doesn't matter because we get both ID and email. So it's user.id, isn't it? Argument type string or undefined is not possible for a type string. Maybe user.id. It says argument of type string. So we need to find the existing user by ID if they use the credentials provider. What we can do here is it's giving us the email verified. We can say email verified equals the user dot email verified. Does not exist on type user or adapter user. Huh. I think there is specific types that Tailwind allows. There's this new file we have to create called hey, what's up, Loco? How would that be possible to sign in with Google without verifying email? How would that be possible to sign in with Google without verifying the email? The reason why it's possible is because of this line of code right here. So what I did was I console logged the account. So let's first go to the asynchronous callbacks that auth.js provides us. Getting start, no API reference. Now we'll go to guides, callbacks, and then we can look at all the different callbacks. And the callback we're using is the sign-in callback. So we're using the sign-in callback to control if a user is allowed to sign in or not. So what the callback, the sign-in callback, which is what we use, it could take in the user, the account, the profile, the email, or the credentials. So what I want to see is I want to see the user and account. Accounts usually associated with like a Google provider or GitHub provider, and the user is usually your user model from the credentials provider. So you only return false to display default error message, or you return true if they're allowed to sign in. So if it's allowed to sign in, you return true and it lets you sign in. What we did over here is we console logged the user and account, and what we got was we got the user with ID, name, email verified, image, and password. And then the account is the provider account ID, the type, and the provider. So if they sign in with the Google provider, this provider is going to say Google instead of credentials. So we just put if account.provider, which is this field right here. If that does not equal credentials, so that means if they sign in with Google, we're just going to return true and let them sign in. And we only gave them two options to register an account, which was Google and the credentials. So if it's not credentials, it's Google. And we just return true, which allows them to sign in, because that is what this sign in callback does. It controls if the user is allowed to sign in or not. And when using the credentials provider, the user object is the response returned from the authorized callback, and the profile object is the raw body of the HTTP post submission. So there's different callbacks, but the sign-in callback allows us to do that. So now we're just trying to, next thing we're trying to do is we are trying to see if the email is verified. If it's not verified, then we're going to return false, and then we want to display message. But I know one of the files that we need for the auth.js is we need to create a new file on the root layer. And we need to call this next-auth.t.ts. And I'm going to copy and paste this here. And what this is just a bunch of different types that Next.auth provides us so we don't get type errors. So the next step we want to do is, like I said, we are trying to figure out how to, if they don't have a verified email, we need to return false. But hopefully that explanation loco helps and makes sense. These asynchronous callbacks, they're really difficult, but they're very powerful too. Hey, how you doing, Joao? Because Google has already verified the account or not, this value comes from Google and are ran into the user or account table in the database. You can check it when the user wanted to sign up. If not verified from Google, you can show a message error. Yeah, correct. Yeah, exactly. That's what you could do for sure. The value comes from Google and that. Because I have a bunch of videos on my channel too. Obviously, I don't remember everything, but I have channels going over their asynchronous callbacks, and I have my code here on my other screen that I'm looking at to kind of give me a reference, but I'm still trying to figure out kind of what my code is doing over here and what we are trying to do for the next step to see if the existing, so this is what it says: find the existing user by ID if they used the credentials provider. So that's what we need to do. So we store it in a variable called existing user. Oh. And then we run await and then get user by ID. And the get user by ID is this function right here inside of our data folder. And we are accepting the ID and we're finding a unique user based on the ID and returning the user. And then what we need to pass in is the user dot ID. But then we're getting an error, a type error. Argument of type string or undefined is not assignable to parameter of type string. So if we do a quick fix for this, fix using Copilot. Yes, so to solve the problem, we can add a nullish coalescing operator, which is the double question mark, to provide a default value of an empty string if user.id is undefined. Okay, that makes sense. So that gets rid of that error. Oh, appreciate it. Thank you very much, Joa. I really appreciate it. Hopefully I'm not butchering your name. Okay, so we're going to find the existing user, and then we're going to store it here. And the existing user gets the ID, the name, the email verified, the image, and the password. And we need the email verified because we need to do a check. So if there is no existing user dot email verified, so if there's none of that, so that means they didn't verify the email, we return false. And let me just write a comment, prevent sign in if the user is not verified. And then all else, we're just going to return true because that has to be down here or we get an error. Okay, so I want to work on the other asynchronous callbacks, but this should work. Let me try to create an account and then like sign in with the user who's not even like logged in. I don't have a sign out button, so I got to like go to the application and delete all of the cookies. / register. Okay, so we are going to register an account. So say just Tom. And then we're not going to verify the email. Okay, email verification was sent. I don't even have Tom at Gmail, so we can't verify anyway. So we're going to click already have an account. We're going to try to log into Tom at Gmail. 1, 2, 3, 4. It should not let us log in if the asynchronous callback of the sign-in works. Something went wrong. Now, it's not... Okay, so that's working. Let me try to actually log in to my verified email account. Because I know that is the password, so it's not like something went wrong, the password's wrong. And then we're logged in. Okay, so it is working, the sign-in. I just need to create a custom error handler to make it look better. Let me delete these cookies again. For the email verification, do you send them the link to verify their account? Yes, I do. So I'm going to show you that code real quick. Okay, so the code that I send over via email is I use resend email, and it's inside of my lib folder inside the mail.ts. And I installed the package resend and then imported it at the top. I made sure to get the API key from resend and I stored it inside of here. I then pretty much created a variable called domain and used localhost 3000. Used a function called send verification email. It's an asynchronous function that accepts the email and the token. And what I am doing is I generated a token and then the email is the email that they typed in on the input. So we accept those two as a parameter. And then the confirmation link, which is what you're asking about, I created a variable called confirmation link, used template literals, and I used localhost 3000 / auth / new verification. And then I added some URL search parameters on the end, which is the token stored in this token variable. So that's the confirmation link they get. And then it's sending it through this. So for example, like the email right here, please click to verify. If you click it, it's an invalid token because I already verified. So it's going to show invalid because the token was deleted. but you can see that's localhost 3000 / auth new verification and then the token right here. And then we just use the search params and get the value of the token from the URL. So for the email verification, that's how we send them the link to verify their account. And this is all happening mainly through the server action of the register action. So when they register, I still did all the checks of hashing the password, seeing if a user exists, make sure the passwords match, creating the user, and then after we create the user, after all the checks, then we also generate a verification token, and then we send the verification token as well. Well, we send the verification email. And then if everything returns successfully, we put email verification was sent. That means the email was sent successfully. So if you guys have any questions, keep asking. I don't mind going back over it if you guys don't understand anything fully. I'm hoping I'm explaining as good as I can. But let's go back inside of the auth.js. And let's create more asynchronous callbacks. Inside the callbacks object here, after... so I did use resend, but through the server, now the path I didn't include token, I did home auth token. Yeah, you have to include the question mark and then token equals token, because when you go inside of the components and the new verification form, to accept that token, you've declared the search params, and then you just equal to the use search params hook. And then I named a variable called token, and I equaled the search params.get method, and I got the token. So if you name it something else like token equals, or if you name it like verification equals token, then you're going to put .get and then verification. And I store the token in the token variable here. I'm going to also make sure this code is available on GitHub. I'm going to do that after the live tonight and push the code in a repository. Okay, so next step, let's create some of these asynchronous callbacks. So the main one that's very important is going to be the async, it's JWT. And if you want to see what the JWT accepts, I know it accepts the token because I've worked with this in the past, but you can actually go through the docs, list all of the ones that the JWT accepts as parameters, and then just console log it. And then you can see when it runs too. So you console log the JWT and just name it token. So the JWT gets the token. So we're going to say if there is no token. So if there is no token dot sub, we are just going to return the token. And if you want to see what the token dot sub is, we could console log the token, and you'll be able to see what the value is of the sub. Next, we want to get the existing user, and we're going to await the get user by ID. And we're just going to pass the token.sub like that. Next, if there's no existing user, so if there's no existing user, let's just return the token. And we're going to get an existing account now. And I don't think we have this function created yet, so we might have to actually create it. Get account. Yeah, we don't. So we're going to get the account by user ID. And to do that, this is going to allow us to get the Google provider account. We're going to go inside of data. we're going to create another file called account.ts. We're going to import the database. And this is coming from the lib folder. Next, let's create the function export const get account by user ID. This is going to be asynchronous. It is going to take in the user ID. This is going to be a string. We could do a try catch block. We could create a variable called account. This is going to go inside of the account model, which is where we store our Google provider, and it's going to find where the user ID matches up, and then we are going to have to return the account. And then if we catch an error, let's just return null. Okay, so what we can do now is we could await the get account by user ID, and then we're just passing in the existing user.id. I spelled it wrong, so let's spell it right. There we go. And the reason why we're still getting error on the JWT asynchronous thing is because we have to, at the very end of this asynchronous callback, return the token just like that. But next we want to do token dot is auth equals the existing account. Let me copy some stuff over. Token.name, token.email, token.image equals the existing user.image, and we are returning the token. And then let me do the asynchronous callback as well for the session. And then I'm going to explain in better detail of how this works, because the token and the session asynchronous callback kind of work hand in hand. So we're going to say if there is a token.sub and there's a session.user. We're going to put the session.user ID equal to the token.sub, which is the ID. And then we're going to say if there is a session.user, then we want to copy this over, paste, and then we're going to save this. Session.user.name equals the token.name, or it's an empty string if it's undefined or null. And this equals all of this, and then we just have to return the session. Okay, so I kind of want to explain how this works. Let's go to the docs. And the sign-in callback's important, obviously, but the most important ones are the JWT and the session. So the JWT callback is called whenever a JSON web token is created or updated. Whenever a session is accessed in the client, the return value will be encrypted and stored in a cookie. So when I was deleting those cookies, that's when the JWT callback is actually called. So the JWT callback is only called, I think, when you first sign in. That's it. We could make sure by console logging everything in the JWT and everything in the session to see which one pops up. So request to the API auth sign-in, API auth session, and calls to get session, blah, 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 will invoke this function. Okay, so it sounds right there, but only if you're using a JWT session. This method is not invoked when you persist sessions in the database. So when we make request to the API auth sign-in, which whenever we sign in, API auth session or the get server session, use session, any of those, it will invoke this function of the JWT callback. The arguments user account profile and his new user are only passed the first time this callback is called on a new session after the user signs in. In subsequent calls, only the token will be available. Okay, so what we are trying to do is we are trying to get the token information. So let's console log this token actually. So yeah, token in JWT and token. Let's console log it. Let's remove the console log of the sign-in because we are kind of done with that function or that asynchronous callback. And let's see if we're logged in or not. Okay, so it looks like we're not logged in. So let's log in. I already have an account. We're going to sign in, and then we're going to look at our server logs. Cool. So we console logged token in JWT. It looks like it called it once and then called it twice. So we get the name, email, picture, and sub. So the token.sub is like the ID of the JWT. So it starts with 65 DC. If we inspect, go to our cookies. Let's see if it's the same one. No, it's not. Let's go back to our console. So it gives us is OAuth, which is false, the image, which is null, picture, null. I think we're getting all of these properties of the JWT. I think this is not from the Prism schema. Yeah, it's not from the Prism schema because we actually get these from Next.auth. So is OAuth is false. So we want to pass this to our session. So we want to pass everything from the token into our session, because if we go to our dashboard, I think then we're able to access all of this information, which is what we want. Okay. I'm going to open up something, and it's now kind of starting to come back to me. Let's do a Figma Jamboard. And we are going to, we're just going to create a diagram so we can better understand what's going on. So this is going to be the JWT callback. And this is going to be called on sign in. And this is going to have, so let me make sure I'm 100% right. So I'm going to comment all of this out. And let's console log okay, so yeah. So when we want to pretty much show the user their information, we have to run the auth command. So if we go to our dashboard, so let's go to our dashboard. I'm going to show you guys how to do this. We have to import this auth from @/auth. I have a small question for the end of the video series. Would it be possible, be feasible to address the topic of open Next at some point in the future, specifically exploring how to deploy Next.js on a pay as a software other than for sale, such as AWS? Multiple microservices for Next.js like Uno. Yeah, Joe. I could definitely look into it. I have no clue how to do that. Next.js on path on the for sale such as AWS. This could be interesting if one wants to have multiple microservices with Next.js like Hono. Similar to Express.js, Strappy is a headless CMS. Does anybody do that on YouTube? Like teach that, how to do that? Because that is a good topic. But I really don't know how to do that, so I'd have to actually learn, which might take a while, and then I could definitely share what I find. But yeah, I don't have the capability to do that. But pretty much to access a session, so whoever's logged in to access their session, you have to use this auth now. So to use this auth, if we go inside of our localhost 3000, are we even logged in? I don't think we are. One sec, guys. So we're con session. Oh, this is going to, it's on the server, duh. Okay. So let's log in. DA Brett Westwood. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We're going to log in. We're not going to get anything in the console, but now we have our cookies. And on the dashboard, we did a console log session, and then we named a session. And all we get is the user name, the email, and the image, which is null, and the expires of the cookie. But then you can see the token. If you look at the token and the JWT, we get a lot more information, like is auth is false, image, all that stuff. And the is auth is false. Exactly. Yeah. Okay. Makes a lot more sense now. And this is very, very important when you're using auth.js, which gives you a lot better capabilities. But pretty much what you can do is you can create a next-auth.t.ts file on the root layer of your project. And what you could do is you can import the user role from the app Prism client, and you import next auth and then type default session from next-auth like this. And then we have to extend the user. So extending the user essentially allows us to add more properties to the session. And what that does is essentially allows us to display more information based on the user logged in, which is very important depending on what you want to do. So if you want to show the user their address, if you want to show the user a bunch of other stuff, you can do that. But another way you can do that too is if you want to just have all that information in the database and access it there. But that is making database calls. But things you could do is you could add extended user to your user. So we have the is OAuth as a Boolean, is two-factor enabled as a Boolean, and we also have the role as the user role, which we just have to do to make it as the type. It's really hard to explain this because the docs aren't super clear about what's going on. But all I know is that on the call, if we look what was called first, so we had compiled it, the first thing that is called is the JWT. So the JWT token is called. So let's go here. JWT callback. And this is going to be the first one called on sign in. Then what this does essentially is right after we have the session callback. This is called second. So the session callback is called second and the JWT is called first. The JWT returns a token. And this token is where we could add a bunch of variables to it. And what we want to do is we want to pass the variables from the JWT callback to the session callback. So if you see the token in the JWT has name, email, is OAuth, and that is the field we added. So if we want to add something else like address and then do string, let's save it. Let's log out and let's see if the address variable or property pops up inside of the console when we sign in. So let me log me out. We're just going to go to login, log back in. So we're logged in. We're on the dashboard. Let's look at our console. So we need to see when it refreshed the page. So it compiled right here. So we have, let's see. So the token didn't get the address. So I'm wrong about that. So we have the name, the email, the picture is OAuth. I wonder if you had to reset the server. Yeah, I don't see address. Sorry guys if I'm quiet a little bit. I'm trying to really figure out what's going on. You just got to like keep critically thinking about how the flow is of the information when it comes to asynchronous callbacks. Slam TypeScript code is performing operation on the token object, is setting a property is OAuth on the token based on the truthiness of the existing count variable. I'm trying to figure out where they got the OAuth from when they did it, when I followed it. So existing user is the get user by ID. The get user by ID just finds the user in the database, and the schema for the user in the database doesn't have a get OAuth by ID. So extend the user with is_auth and address. Hey, hello, how you doing, Hershot? Ugh. Obviously on our auth.js, token.is_auth. Token.address. Nope. But there is no token.isAuth either, so oh. No, this has to be really figured out right here. So let me stop the server and reset it. Right now, we are stuck on asynchronous callbacks using auth.js. So pretty much, I'm trying to figure out how we can add different properties from the JWT into the session. So what we did was we had a is_auth added, but I don't understand how I had it added from before. Let me see. So I'm going to log in. It's probably a hydration error. Okay, so when we log in, has anybody have experience? You added the name, email, etc. in the payload JWT, right? Or in the headers? Add in the JWT. So let me get rid of this extended user is_auth. I think this is just for the types. Token.address equals existing user.address, but there's no. let me see my video real quick. I have a video on it. I'm just trying to add a random field. Like if I want to add an address, I'm trying to figure out how I could do that. That's where I'm kind of stuck, because I want to be able to potentially add fields in the future, which I've done it before. I don't know why I can't seem to remember. Let's see. Hey, what's up, YouTube? Today we are going to go over 1, 3, 4, and the outside of the is going program that I created about 5 minutes ago. I'm going to do and password, the email verified, and the image. So we want this address, and you want the ID maybe inside of the session. It's showing the right there, or getting a token inside of the token. Yeah, so where do you think I should add address though? That's the problem. So I don't understand where I added the is auth from. Let me remove this line. So the existing account is null because we signed in. So it's assigning the token dot is auth if there is no existing account. That's what I'm pretty sure. And there's no existing account. So it's either a Boolean, so it's going to be false. So then what we could do is we could do token dot address. Let me try something. Equals 123 Main Street. And we'll see if this actually adds the address. Let me try. I think this should work. Let me try. It did. There it is. Okay. Token.address is 123 Main Street. So what we can do, so to add whatever property you want onto your token, you just do token.whatever. So I did token.address, and then obviously this is hard-coded. What you can do is you could add properties from a model by fetching it like I do here. Makes sense. But then if you see, I don't think the token.address is in the session. So it's not in the session. And the session is what we can get and display on the screen. So if we go back to our dashboard page, we could do session dot user dot name like that, and it should display my name there. Yeah, Brett. So it's displaying that, but if we want to display the address, we don't have that access, which I know how to do. Okay, so everything's starting to make more sense now. And then is OAuth is false. Makes sense. Okay. And it's false is because if there's no account, then the OAuth is false. And then you could add whatever you want properties by doing the dot notation and then returning the token. And then the session up here, token and session, that token accepts everything, even the address. So if there's a token.sub and a session.user, which there is, we're going to have the session.user.id equal to token.sub, which is the token.id. And then if there is a session.user, we can update the session.user name to token.name, email, image, is OAuth, and the OAuth should now pop up in our session. Let me log out again and see if that works. And if it does, then I'll explain it a little better on FigJam. Let's see. Log in. Okay, so let's see the console. So we have the token in session, and we are displaying the token first and then the session. It's not accepting the is auth though, is OAuth in the field. You're saying one doubt, when we send the JWT to the front end, it's encrypted. So why are we seeing the data through JWT? I don't know if we're ever sending it to the front end unless it's through the asynchronous session callback. It looks, and the reason why we're sending I don't think we're sending everything. So for example, we're not sending the, so we are sending the ID. So the token ID, which we don't have to send. So if there's a token.sub, we can make the session This is definitely it's definitely a brain teaser for sure. Let me see. So we have the token and the JWT. It has the is OAuth. Yeah. Hey, what's up, Akil? We're not sending the password or anything like that, and it will be accessible to the logged in user only. Yeah, we're not sending the password. We don't have the password, so only in the JWT we have the name, email, the sub, which is the token ID. I guess one doubt when we send the JWT front end, we can send just the ID and make separate calls. That is possible, actually. I know, like, the right way to do it based on the auth.js was to do it like this. Let me look at my video again. Exception callback. So on sign in, we want to return. So I'm going to go back to my local. Okay, I think I kind of know what's going on. Let me see. Let me move this to my other screen. Let's try this. Return everything in this session. And then the user will get all of this. Return. And then return the session. Like that. Nope. Yeah, but making 2 calls as an extra round trip is better if the user relay things are already packed inside the token. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to make sure it's all packed in the token and then just switch it from the JWT into the session. Let's see. Return session. Okay, so we're going to try to log in again. Log in. So we have the token in the JWT console, which is here. That's console log in the token. It has the name, email, picture, sub, is auth, which is false, image, all that, token and session in session. There's the token there. And then there's the session. And then the session again with the user. Let me try if token dot sub, or let me move this all inside of here and see. I can't set the is OAuth property right here inside of this session. It's in the token, which is false. But for some reason, I can't get it inside the session. All I'm getting is the name, the email, the image, and the ID, which I got here from the token.sub. So I think that might work now. I don't think I'm still getting it. I'm not. We might have to come back to this another time. Let me close my code real quick. Now for some reason I'm getting an error here, which I don't know what I did. Okay, now it looks like I broke the code. Or is it because I have to return the session outside? Nope. Okay, now it's good. Anybody in the chat, any ideas of what potentially it could be? What are your thoughts on scalable web app? Say your voice website in the future receives millions of users. How are you going to scale? As Vercella's expensive scale and also expensive switch from Vercel. I haven't thought that far, so honestly, I have no clue. I hope like they set up like some plans where if you have more users, it's like a cheaper tier, but we'll see. First, I need to get that thing up and going, but Vercel just makes it easy when you use Next.js. Let me look at my code again. So we have the JWT token. We return it. Let's do the session. Okay, let's try login. It's still not receiving it, which is crazy. Path to our session object.
Disaster duo, that sucks. Fleas and ticks suck too. Seresto can help with this one. The #1 vet recommended flea and tick collar for 8 continuous months. Stop sucking with Seresto.
Oh,
To be free and flexible and creative was really essential to what I wanted to make, and I didn't find a platform that did that other than Wix.
object. Yeah, which is because that session is going to allow us to use it on the client. And what we want to do is we want to put all the information inside that token, because that token is getting passed to this asynchronous function, user.id, as you see here. So other than that, it looks like this function is completely done, and we can retest theory. And if it works, that means this JWT callback, the second time it's called, the project I'm doing right here,
undefined,
should have the ID. Or are you talking about the
and
voice
the
one?
address
In it. So I'm going to go back to my local host 3000. Where is it? Here it is, right here. Okay. So the JWT callback is called. We get the token, which we console log here. We get the user, which we console logged again. And now we... Yeah, I could do that. Just give me one... I'm trying to figure this out. I feel like I don't want to get off this until I figure it out. Token in JWT. Then we have the token in session, which gets that token. Then we have the session in session. I'm trying to be able to get the token.isOauth, which is showing up in the token in session, which is here, this token. I'm trying to get that property inside of the session. I'm trying to get the isOauth property from the token inside of the session property. We are passing the user ID, does by default, and that's now that we successfully passed, return it. Then we get the token here. So everything in the session, and if you want to look at whatever it is, the session is called right here, which is the name, email, and image. So the name, email, and image. And then we're doing a comma. And then we need to define the user, because it's going to be inside the user object. Yeah, give me 1 second, Akil. Let me try this. Return session user object. We are going to spread out throughout the session.user, and then we are going to pass the ID, which is the token.id, and then we're going to pass them the address, which is the token.address. And then we could just close this with a semicolon here. It's not the token.id, I think it's token.sub. Okay, let me just see if this works. Oh, it works. Thank God. Whew. I was able to get it here. Return session, so the spread syntax of session, and then the user, and then you spread through the session.user ID. I don't think I need this return session then. Yep, it works. Nice. Let me see if I could access it though. So if I do go dashboard, let's just put this in a p tag. Let's put this in a p tag. So session dot user dot, there we go, is auth name is auth, and it should show me false on the screen. But it's not showing me false now on the screen. Or is it just because it's a Boolean? Or yeah, I could do that. Yep, it's working. All right, so let me see if I want to add JSON stringify. So let's say if we want to add a property to the session. If we want to add a property, we get the existing user from the getUserById function. The getUserID function Songun, hey man, I'm a React.js developer from Nepal. Hey, how you doing? Thanks for joining. Yeah, we're working on the auth.js version 5 authentication, just doing asynchronous callbacks. We just created a verification token sent to the user so they can verify their email and log in. So the SaaS we're creating is the OpenAI. We're going to use OpenAI API to create a ChatGPT widget for people's websites. And all we're working on right now is the authentication part for the website. And this is actually episode 3, day 3. I do about a few hours a day as well. So it's not like a full day, but it gets the job done. Akil, are you still there? You went away. How do you resolve the problem? So I resolved the problem by going in the auth.js file. So my JWT asynchronous callback was correct. I returned the token. Everything in this code was still correct. All I did in the session was I returned the session by spreading the syntax of the session of all the attributes, and then I had the user, so it's like session.user, and I spread all of that, and I guess it was how I did the syntax. I should do and explain this with the GitHub Copilot to see what it does. I think the main thing that was my problem was the syntax of how I was writing the code. So it says the function that returns a new object, the object is created using the spread operator to include all properties of the session object. This means that the return object will have the same properties as session, but any properties with the same name that are defined after the spread operator will overwrite the properties in the session. In this case, the user property of the return object is also an object which includes all the properties of session.user. Again, using the spread operator, and then adds and overwrites the ID and is_OAuth properties. The ID property is set to the token.sub, and the is_OAuth property is set to the token.is_OAuth. Okay, but it looks like everything is working good. Let me test it out real quick. So let me delete my user, and we're going to start from scratch. Okay, guys, so we're going to test this out now. So let's create the account again. We're going to register. Email verification was sent. So we are going to go to my email now. We've received an email. Click here to verify your email address. Click. Confirming now. Email verified successfully. Back to login. Login. We log in and we are getting all the properties that I want. And everything looks good. So it's a session object with the user object inside of it. That's what it's looking like. And then if I want to sign out, I can sign out using their function. Okay, so everything looks pretty good. I think the next thing I want to do is create the reset password. So inside of it's going to be the login page if we reset the password, not the register page. For obvious reasons, you don't reset a password if you don't have an account. So inside of the login form, we need to have pretty much like a button that says forgot password ? So I'm going to go inside of my login form. Let me close all of this. So inside of the auth component, components auth, login form. we are going to create a button below the last. It should be below the last form field right here. So button from shadcn, forgot password, and then close the button like that. Let's give it a size of small. A variant of link. As child, we have to give as a prop to the button so we could use the link component inside of it. And then let's give it a few class names. So padding left and right of 0, font normal. Forgot password. Let's do the link component from Next navigation. Is it Next navigation? Where do we even have it imported? No, we don't. So we have to import the link from next/link. That's where it's from. I haven't actually tested. Did the OAuth turn true? It should be true if I log in with the Gmail account. So actually, let me try that. Good thing you brought that up because I actually never tried that. Let me just finish where I'm going to redo this. So /auth/reset. So we're going to do a reset form there. So in the code to see if the OAuth will turn true, the OAuth should only be true is if they log in with their Gmail or the Google provider. So I put if the token.isOAuth, it's going to equal if there's an existing account or not based on us getting the account by the user ID. So let me try to log in now. With a Google provider. So we're going to go to register, sign in with Google. We will try this account. Continue. And then we need to make sure that redirects us to the dashboard. So let's see if we're even logged in. Yeah, we're logged in. Let's go to the dashboard, see if we see everything. Oh yeah, so there it is. IsOAuth is true. And it actually gives us like the image, the Google image. So we need to give the user who signs up with the credentials provider the, access to upload a image. So is the OAuth only works for the providers then? Based on the code, yes. So I just named this field is OAuth. You can name this whatever you want. So token.auth, token is OAuth. And then I equaled it to whatever the opposite is of the existing account. And we get the existing account variable from the get account by user ID. And the get account by user ID just goes into our model account and finds where the IDs match up. And if they do, then it is an OAuth account and this should return true. And if there is no existing account, it returns false. That's how that works right there. If we go back to the code, let me see if the forgot password was added. So it should be /auth/login. And then we got forgot password right here. Cool. But now this doesn't work. So we have the button going to the auth/reset. So the login form, it goes to auth/reset. So we need to create that page now. So inside of the app folder and the auth folder, we need to create a new folder called reset. Name this page.tsx. RAFCE. We got to create this reset password form. So we're going to do inside of our components folder and the auth folder, reset password form.tsx. Let's import it here. Rather click on create file and name it as reset page.tsx. Rather click on create file and name it as a reset and then page.tsx. I do this because I want this to still be a server page. Wait, I'd rather click on create file and name it as reset. Oh, okay, I see what you're saying. Yeah. Yeah, it's just, yeah, it does save a few clicks. I see, yeah. I probably should start doing that. So let's create the reset password form. This is going to be a use client. We're going to import all as Z from Zod. We also need to import the use form from React Hook form. We need to import all of the form components from ShadCN like that. We need to import the Zod resolver. We also need to import the input and button from ShadCN components. And we could also import the card wrapper from our card wrapper, which is our reusable component. Okay, so what we could do is we could wrap everything in the card wrapper. And then we're going to have some props to pass to this. And the props that it accepts is going to be the header label, and that we can name reset your password. We got the title of this form, and the title we can name forgot your password. No worries, we got you. That's pretty good. We have the backbone href. We could go to the auth login, and then we have the backbone level. Remembered your password, log in here. That's pretty good. And then we got to give it children as well. So I'm just going to put a div right here for now. So that looks good. Next thing we need to do is we need to create another schema. This schema, we're going to call it the reset schema, reset password schema. I did create a function for the reset password. What I did is I have an input field, and then the user has to type their email and send them the link if there is a user with said email. Correct. Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what you're supposed to do. If you want, you could copy and paste the function into the chat, and we could look at it. Oh no, this is not going to reset the password schema. What they need is the email. Please enter a valid email. Yeah. Okay, cool. So we're going to do the same thing, exactly what we did in our login and register form. We're going to have a form for this reset password. Oh, okay. No worries. So what we are going to do, let's move this down a little bit. Let's import the reset password schema. Let's define the form. Form equals use form. It's going to infer that the reset password schema. We're going to use the auto resolver, passing in the reset password schema, and our default value is going to be an empty string for the email. So that's good. Next, we could create the onSubmit. It is going to take in the reset password schema, and we could just console log the data for now, which is perfect. And then I'm going to copy the form again over. It's the same thing, like I said, in our login and register, so there's no point of retyping that. I could get rid of the disabled. We need the form error if there is an error, and then the form success if there is a success. Get rid of this disabled for now, and we need to create the state for error and success. And we don't have the use state hook, so let's get that in too. Okay, cool. Everything looks good. So now let's work on the onSubmit function, which is called when we handle the submit. But it's the same. I think it's faster in JavaScript when typing the function. It could be. I'm not 100% sure. I don't really deal with Java. For how long are you live? Just depends. So far, I've been live for what, 2.5 hours? 2 hours and 45 minutes. So I'm about to stop here soon after I'm kind of done with the reset password, and then I'll pick up again tomorrow or the next day. I usually give a notification. But I've been live on average like 2.5, 3 hours each time. We could set the error right off the bat to an empty string. Set the success. No, probably a little later because I'm going to finish this reset password. So it's going to take me more than 2 minutes. And then we could call a reset server action. We have to name reset. Reset password. And let's create that server action right now. New file, reset password.ts. Let's mark this as a use server. Oh, you're setting the notifications on when I go live? Yeah, that would help a lot. My PC's slowing down, need upgrade. What PC do you got? We're going to import the reset password schema to do validation checks. Import get user by email. Import the send password reset email. So we have to create more functions. So we're going to create a password reset email. And then we also need to generate a password reset token. So let's generate the password reset token. So we're going to go inside of our lib token. And let's create it right here. Export const generate password reset token. And GitHub Copilot is wrong. That's not what we're going to be using. We're not using the verification token. We have a password token inside of our schema. Let me see. So if we go to our Prism and then schema.prism, we have a password reset token model here, so we could use that. So to do that, we are in token, generate password. We're going to generate the password reset token. It's going to be almost the same way as the other one. So we are going to create a token using that package. We are going to then create a variable that expires the token. We'll give it 15 minutes. Then we are going to look for an existing token, and we're going to get, we have to look for it, and we have to actually create this function. So what we could do is we could go inside of data, create a new file called password reset token.tsx or .ts. Let me rename this .ts. And this is going to be two functions. We're going to import the database. And this is going to allow us to use the Prism methods. We're going to export const, get password reset token by email. We're taking in the email. Password.find verse, return. That looks good. So that function is good to go. We're going to also do const get password reset token by token. And that looks good as well too. Okay, so we have those ready. Now let's go back in to our server action or our token right here. Inside of our data, inside of our lib actually. And we're going to say get password reset token by email. And then we're just passing in the email because that's what we retrieve here. And then if there's an existing token, we could delete the password reset token. And then if after that, we could create a new one. And then return the password token. Nice. I can't shift space at post mapping, forgot. Is that Java? Because I don't know Java syntax like that at all. Yeah, I'm going to probably call it here, actually. Let me just remove this. It looks terrible. Okay, so I'm probably going to call it here. I'm going to call it where I'm about to start working on the reset password server action. That's what I'm going to pick up tomorrow. Not too much left in this, but we could look at the completed product of what we have so far. Data verification of the system, can't find the file specified. Oh, because I put this, I had a TSX. Let me just put it back. Let me fix this real quick. This should be .ts. And then we have to see all the spots I did this verification token at. So let's give verification token. / login, register. Click sign in with Google. And takes us to the auth register. I kind of wanted to redirect to the dashboard. Yeah, because now we're logged in. Let's see, so we do auth.ts. I have the Google login right here. There must be a redirect. There's got to. Redirect. Oh, callback URL probably. Specify to which URL the user would be redirected after signing in. Defaults to the page URL that signs in for the initiated form. So / dashboard. Let's see if that works. Okay, so we're logged out. And it redirects to the dashboard. Okay, perfect. I'm just going to log out again. Okay, other than that, though, I'm going to finish the password reset token. And just, I feel like my brain's all over the place right now. So we'll finish that tomorrow, the password reset. And then we'll actually start styling the homepage of our application. And then eventually, soon, we're going to get to the OpenAI API. And that's where we're going to either use the Assistant AI, API or the actual ChatGPT API. So we need to see which one is better when it comes to cost and kind of go from there. But other than that, before I leave, if you haven't hit that like button so other people could join the live and we could interact with more like-minded people. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel, obviously, it means a lot. But other than that, I will notify you guys sometime tomorrow when I'll be going live. And thank you guys again for watching. And I'll see you guys in the next